In 1977, construction workers in the port city of Quanzhou, China, broke ground on a routine drainage project. 2 meters below the surface, their equipment struck something solid. They dug around it, then further still. What they uncovered was a ship, not a small vessel, a deep ocean trading ship 12 meters wide with a hull built from techniques that shipwrights today describe as extraordinarily advanced. It had been buried in that ground for 700 years, and it had no business being as sophisticated as it was. The history of human seafaring is far older and far more sophisticated than we were taught. Civilisations separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years built ocean vessels with construction techniques, navigation systems, and engineering solutions that researchers today still struggle to fully explain. Some of these ships were found in places they couldn't logically have reached. Others were built from materials and methods that shouldn't have existed at the time. All of them carry the same uncomfortable question: how did ancient people know how to do this? These are 5 ancient ships that scientists still can't fully explain. 13th century, Quanzhou was one of the largest ports on Earth. Marco Polo described it as one of the 2 greatest trading cities in the world. Ships arrived from Arabia, India, Southeast Asia, and East Africa. The harbor was never quiet. In 1977, when construction workers accidentally uncovered the ship buried beneath the harbor district, archaeologists immediately understood what they were looking at. This was a Song Dynasty ocean-going trading vessel, one of the largest wooden ships of its era ever excavated. It was approximately 34 meters long and had a cargo capacity of 200 tons. What stopped the archaeological team in their tracks was not the size. It was the construction method. The hull used a technique called multi-layered strake planking, where the outer hull was built from multiple overlapping layers of timber, each layer running in a different direction. Modern naval engineers who have analyzed the wreck describe this as an extremely sophisticated approach to hull strength and watertight integrity. The ship also featured watertight bulkhead compartments, internal walls that divided the hull into sealed sections. If one section flooded, the others remained dry and the ship stayed afloat. This is the same principle used in modern steel ships today. The question that researchers have struggled to answer is how shipbuilders in 13th century China developed this technology centuries before it appeared anywhere else in the world. The cargo recovered from the hull added another layer of mystery. Among the goods were fragrant woods, pepper, and betel nuts, sourced from Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent, evidence of trade routes spanning thousands of ocean miles. The ship had been built not just to carry cargo, but to survive deep ocean crossings in conditions that would have tested modern vessels. In Episode 1, we talked about what was found inside the Antikythera Shipwreck, the mechanism that rewrote the history of human engineering. But almost nobody talks about the ship itself, because the ship is its own mystery. The vessel that carried the Antikythera mechanism to the bottom of the Aegean Sea was approximately 40 meters long, making it one of the largest merchant ships known from the ancient world. It was carrying a cargo so valuable and so varied that researchers have spent decades trying to understand who commissioned it and where it was going. The cargo included at least 7 large bronze statues, rare beyond description since most ancient bronze was melted down and reused over the centuries. There was fine glassware from Alexandria, marble sculptures, luxury goods of a kind that would only be found in a single collection, a royal treasury, or a very powerful private patron. But the ship itself raised questions that have never been fully resolved. Modern analysis of the hull timbers, conducted during more recent dives in 2014 and 2016, revealed construction techniques using lead sheathing on the hull exterior. This is a method designed to protect against marine wood-boring organisms on long ocean voyages. It suggests the ship was built for extended deep ocean travel, not coastal routes. A vessel of this size carrying this cargo using deep ocean construction techniques was sailing through the Aegean in approximately 70 BC. The navigational knowledge required to plan and execute that voyage, understanding currents, stars, seasonal winds, represents a level of seamanship that history has consistently underestimated for this period. In 2013, a French archaeological team working on the Red Sea coast of Egypt made a discovery that immediately rewrote the history of seafaring. In a series of rock-cut galleries and caves carved into the cliffs, they found the oldest maritime installation ever discovered on Earth. ropes, storage jars, anchors, and fragments of wooden ships. The Wadi al-Jarf harbor dates to approximately 2550 BC, the same era as the Great Pyramid. That alone is remarkable. What made it extraordinary was the papyri found alongside the ships. These were the logbooks of an official named Merer, who supervised teams transporting limestone blocks to Giza. The harbor was a working port, a logistical hub for the pyramid construction project. The ships themselves were extraordinary. Analysis of the timber fragments showed they were built using a technique called lashing, where the hull planks were stitched together with rope rather than nailed. This sounds primitive until you understand the engineering. A lashed hull is flexible, allowing the vessel to flex with ocean swells rather than cracking under stress. It is a design principle that modern yacht designers have independently arrived at for racing vessels. These ships were sailing the open Red Sea 4,500 years ago, navigating between Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula, potentially as far as the Arabian coast. The Egyptians of 2550 BC were not a civilization just beginning to experiment with boats. They were operating a sophisticated, logistically complex maritime network to build the most precisely engineered structure in human history. The most uncomfortable question raised by Wadi al-Jarf is not about the ships. It is about what else the Egyptians were doing that we haven't found yet. In 1982, a Turkish sponge diver named Mehmet Çakır was working the waters off Cape Uluburun when he spotted something on the seafloor at 44 meters depth. He described them as metal biscuits with ears. He reported it to archaeologists. What followed was one of the most significant underwater excavations in history. 11 seasons of diving, over 20,000 dives, and a cargo that rewrote what we know about the ancient world. The Uluburun ship was approximately 15 meters long, a late Bronze Age trading vessel. Its cargo was staggering. 350 copper ingots weighing approximately 10 tons, 1 ton of tin, ebony logs from sub-Saharan Africa, ivory from elephant and hippopotamus, jars of olives, pomegranates, figs, and spices, glass ingots in cobalt blue, turquoise, and lavender, gold and silver jewelry, a solid gold scarab bearing the name of Egyptian Queen Nefertiti. The cargo came from at least 11 different cultures: Egypt, Canaan, Cyprus, the Aegean, Mesopotamia, the Baltic, sub-Saharan Africa. This single vessel connected a trading network spanning the entire known ancient world. It was sailing in 1300 BC, 3,300 years ago, with a commercial reach that would have been impressive in the medieval period. The ship itself has raised persistent questions. The hull construction used techniques that allowed for heavy cargo loading while maintaining ocean-going stability. The vessel would have required an experienced crew of at least 20, with navigational knowledge sufficient to cross open Mediterranean waters. In 1300 BC, we have been taught that such long-range trade was limited. The Uluburun wreck proves otherwise and suggests that whatever network it was part of was far larger than one ship. In 1991, an American archaeologist named David O'Connor was excavating near the ancient city of Abydos, one of the earliest capitals of unified Egypt, when his team discovered something that had no logical explanation for being where it was. Buried in the desert, far from any water, in a series of mud brick enclosures, they found 14 ancient wooden ships. The ships were not small ceremonial vessels. They were full-sized ocean-going craft, between 18 and 29 meters long, each built to sail open water. They were buried complete, not in pieces, not as models. Whole ships placed in brick-lined trenches in the desert, deliberately sealed, and left. Carbon dating placed the ships at approximately 5,000 years old, among the oldest planked boats ever discovered anywhere on Earth. Their construction showed a level of woodworking sophistication that pushed back the known timeline of Egyptian shipbuilding by over 1,000 years. Egyptologists had assumed ocean-going capability came later. The Abydos fleet said otherwise. The burial itself is deeply strange. The ships were placed alongside what is believed to be the funerary enclosure of a first dynasty pharaoh. The leading theory is that they were buried as part of his mortuary cult, ships for the afterlife, a fleet to carry the king through eternity. But this raises more questions than it answers. Where had these ships sailed in life? Who built them, and where? How advanced was Egyptian shipbuilding 5,000 years ago if they were commissioning fleets of this size? What we know is this. 5,000 years ago, the Egyptians were not just building pyramids. They were building ocean-going fleets. They were sailing routes we haven't fully mapped. And they were burying entire ships in the desert, not because they had no use for them, but because they believed a king would need them somewhere beyond this world. Five ships, 5 stories that the history books didn't make enough room for. The Quanzhou Vessel, a 13th century Chinese trading ship built with hull technology, centuries ahead of its time. The Antikythera Wreck, a 40-meter ocean-going ship carrying the most sophisticated object the ancient world ever produced. The Wadi al-Jarf fleet, the oldest harbor on Earth, used to build the Great Pyramid. The Uluburun ship, a single vessel that connected 11 civilizations across the ancient world. And the Abydos fleet, 5,000-year-old ocean ships buried in the desert for a king who would need them in the afterlife. Ancient people understood the ocean in ways we are still working to fully appreciate. They built vessels that crossed it, traded across it, and built civilizations on either side of it. The ships we have found are remarkable. The ones still waiting to be discovered may be even more so. Next, 6 lost cities hidden beneath the earth, cities that entire civilizations forgot existed. That video is linked above. We will see you there.